Now, this leads us to the third question, okay, of personal pride, which is, what does honor really mean to us? So let's, to put it differently, we can also say that among all the things that make a man honorable, which is the most important? To make our inquiry more mundane, which aspects of honor makes a man most superior that lead to subordination? In his book Wealth of Nation, Adam Smith pointed out a number of qualities and valuable properties of a person that lead to subordination. The first is the superiority of personal qualification. Personal qualification can be divided into two types. The first type is physical qualification, including strength, beauty, let's say agility, and of the body, right? And the second type is mental qualification, and that includes wisdom, virtue, prudence, justice, fortitude, and moderation of mind. So as compared to the quality of the body, the quality of the mind is obviously more important, because unless supported by the mind, the body can give very little authority. The second qualification, based on Adam Smith, is the superiority of age. Adam Smith argued that an old man is usually more respected than a young man of equal rank or equal fortune and equal abilities. For example, for Native American tribes, age was the only foundation of rank and precedency. Among the tribe members, father is the name of a superior, a brother is the name of an equal, and son of an inferior. So in modern nations as well, age also regulates rank among those who are, in every other respect equal. Now, the third of those causes of subordination is the superiority of fortune. Now, Adam Smith admits that the authority of riches has been great in every age of society, but is probably the greatest in certain nomad societies. For example, for a Tartar chief, if the increase of his herbs and stocks was sufficient to maintain 1,000 men, then these 1,000 men would obey his orders, because they literally depend entirely upon him for their subsistence. So his chieftainship was the necessary effect of his wealth. And lastly, the last cause of subordination is the superiority of birth. And that means an ancient superiority of fortune in the family of a person who claims it. It means that the upstart greatness is less respected than ancient greatness in every aspect. So the hatred of usurpers, the love of the family of an ancient monarch, are founded upon the contempt which men naturally have for the former, and upon their veneration for the later. Well, Mencius also enumerated three worthy honors, and he summed up the personal qualification in the word virtue, and he combined the two elements fortune and birth in the word nobility, and counted age as a separate honor. Now, the classification of Mencius is in fact very similar to that of Adam Smith, but it's based on entirely different theories. The theory of Adam Smith is based on general observations, where fortune is considered as the most important cause in getting authority. The theory of Mencius is also based on fact, and is also an ideal, so that he puts virtue as the most honorable thing. He said, in courts, nobility holds the first place of the three. In villages, age holds the first place, and for helping one's generation and presiding over the people, the other two are not equal to virtue. Well, Mencius's theory is true, when he speaks of China, because China has honored virtue above everything else, and this is the peculiar product of Confucius. Now, very interestingly, in response to his theory, Adam Smith said, "There never was, I believe, a great family in the world whose illustration was entirely derived from the inheritance of wisdom and virtue." However, that is not the case in China. In China, apart from the family of Confucius, there are also many great families of Confucius disciples who were respected for their inherited wisdom and virtue. In fact, for the descendants of ancient sages and virtuous families, the Chinese confer upon them special nobility in honor of the virtue of their ancestors, regardless of their wealth. For example, the 77th generation descendant of Confucius in the main line of descent, Mr. Kong De Cheng, was not only respected by the Chinese, but also received great honor in the West, evidently when he visited San Francisco in the US. In the book Liao Fan's 4 Lessons, which I think I introduced to you earlier, Mr. Liao Fan Yuan said, if one has accumulated enough merit for 100 lifetimes, then one would have descendants to last 100 lifetimes. One who accumulated merit for 10 generations would then have descendants for 10 lifetimes to protect the merit. If we look at the modern society, it is very rare that the rich families are able to maintain nobility and wealth for more than 3 generations. I mean, oftentimes we see people make a fortune during the Middle Age but go bankrupt later in life. In traditional Chinese culture, a lasting honor and nobility can only be supported by virtue. And real virtue is absolute selflessness towards other people. Taking philanthropy as an example, being virtuous means doing charity work without condition. Not with the intention of collecting fame or benefit, but simply for the greater good of the society. So, under Confucius' influence, the poor really do not lose social standing on the count of their low standard of living, as long as they are worth anything in themselves. Now, in response to our question earlier, what does honor really mean to us? I guess the answer is quite plain and simple. The real honor is virtue, and virtue is the highest honor of all. It is higher than ranks, and most definitely higher than wealth. It's not just for the poor, but for the wealthy as well. I mean, one can be rich, of course, but it's better to be rich and virtuous at the same time, because for a real man who understands virtue, being poor and immoral is not different from being rich and immoral. So wealth alone is not going to bring any attention to a real man. So I guess we can conclude this section of personal pride with a quote from Mencius. Let me just read this for you. He said, "Those who give counsel to the great should despise them, and not looking at their pomp and display. Halls several times 8 cubits high, with beams projecting several cubits, these, if my wishes were to be realized, I would not have. Food spread before me over 10 cubits square, and attendants and concubines to the amount of hundreds, these, though my wishes were realized, I would not have. Pleasure and wine, and the dash of hunting, the thousands of chariots following after me, these, though my wishes were realized, I would not have. What they esteem are what I will have nothing to do with. What I esteem are the rules of the ancients. Why should I stand in awe of them? Well, it's a rather long quote, but I think Mencius's words need no further explanation. And in fact, if we can maintain our high moral standard, although our standard of living could be low, we'll never feel ashamed and lower in that little room full of wealthier people.